Joining me now live are Liberal Senator Eric Abetz and Labor MP Alicia Payne. Lovely to see you both. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Let's start with the upcoming budget. Senator Abetz, of course, we've got the budget, then the federal election. The cost of living is no doubt a key issue and a key theme coming up. How important is it that the government addresses this and gets it right in the budget? There are a number of families right now struggling to make ends meet.
Cost of living is clearly going to be a very important issue for the voters, and I have every confidence it will be addressed in the budget. How it will be addressed, of course, will be for the Federal Treasurer to announce, and he'll do so Tuesday week. The important thing in the figures that have come out just recently is the best thing to deal with cost of living is to actually have a job. And we have now an unemployment rate that we have not seen since 2008. Tens of thousands of more Australians in employment combined with a lower percentage unemployment. So these are good figures and a real basis and foundation for a rebound of our economy. That said, cost of living clearly is an issue, and if you've been to the supermarket and seen the price of meat, etc., or indeed lately to the Bowser, you will see the cost of living pressures, and we as a government are always mindful of that, because Menzies formed the Liberal Party for the forgotten people, and we will never forget the men and women who make up the bulk of our population, who are the wage earners trying to put food on the table and a roof over their heads.
You mentioned the jobs figures, and while they very much so look good on paper, Eric Abetz, is it enough though to make up for the 2 years of job losses and the strain on the economy from the pandemic?
Well, a 4% unemployment rate is a figure that we have not seen since 2008. What's that, for 14 years? So that is a significant improvement, which means literally tens of thousands of our fellow Australians are now regaining employment, which they didn't have. So the economic handling by Josh Frydenberg and the Prime Minister has been astounding. And if you have a look at the figures of comparable economies around the world, Australia is featuring exceptionally well. And so from an economic management point of view, which translates into social well-being, namely people in employment, that is something that I think Josh Frydenberg has the right to take credit for. And of course, with the cost of living pressures, we'll be dealing with that Tuesday week.
Alicia, cost of living is no doubt a big issue for voters heading into the federal election. What will Labor do to address this?
Thanks for that question, Danica. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what is in this budget, but I'd just like to, remind everyone that this is the 9th budget from this government, and cost of living pressures have been a problem throughout their term. So I would expect they'll probably have some sweeteners in there as we are on the eve of an election. But the real things that need to be done are addressing some of the major drivers of these costs. One of them is childcare, and Labor has a plan to reduce childcare costs for families. The government's plan that just took effect a couple of weeks ago, it only benefits families who have 2 or more children in childcare, whereas our policy will benefit families the whole time that they use childcare.
Including millionaires.
We have a plan to take action on climate change, another thing that this government has neglected for their entire term. And part of that is that we will reduce energy bills by on average $275 a year for families by investing in renewable energy. So that is win-win. And another thing that you never hear this government talk about is wages, which have been stagnant, again, for the entire time that they have been in government. And that will be a key focus of a Labor government. And actually, there's some research that's come out from the McKell Institute that shows that if the rate of wages growth that was happening each year under the Labor government had been maintained until now, that the average worker would have an extra $307 per week in their pay packet, and that adds up to nearly $16,000 per year that the average worker would be better off. So these costs are particularly bad because of the stagnant wages we have seen, and this is not a new problem.
But who sets the wages in Australia? It is the Fair Work Commission that Labor established when they were in government. So this is yet again another vote of no confidence in the Commission, the independent umpire that sets the wages for our fellow Australians. And I think one thing Australians don't want to see is a government promising increased wages and saying that the independent umpire should be set aside. And in relation to cost of living, let's remind ourselves that the huge impost in relation to petrol prices, Russia invading the Ukraine, is not something, with all due respect, that the Labor Party could have stopped, and the petrol prices are a product of that. We as a government are mindful of the impact of that, but please don't suggest that somehow this is something that the government could fix. This is something we need to deal with and grapple with, and we will.
If I could just make a quick response to that, it's certainly not a vote of no confidence in the Fair Work Commission. Everyone knows that governments can make submissions to the Fair Work Commission, particularly in regard of industries that they feel are underpaid, such as early childhood education, such as aged care, and these are things that a Labor government could do. In fact, part of our policy to close the gender pay gap is to empower the Fair Work Commission to do more for industries where female-dominated industries are particularly underpaid. And also on petrol prices, they were high before Ukraine was invaded. They absolutely were.
Has the Ukraine invasion, Alicia, exacerbated the issue, though, with petrol prices, though, to be fair?
Well, of course it has. I'm not denying that. But I'm just saying that many of these issues, including low wages, these have been problems that Australians have been facing for the 9 years that this government have been in power, and they've done nothing about it. And at this stage, to blame these particular spikes in petrol prices for, Australians struggling to make ends meet is not an accurate reflection of what is going on.
All right.